If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune in to the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. I'm your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I am your other host, Lucas Farrell. And we couldn't do this show without our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. They're the largest public funder of arts and art programs right here in St. Louis. And if you didn't know, St. Louis is
an arts town.
So, and of course, Half Coast Studios, shout out to Matt in the back on the ones and twos, cutting up a perfect episode for Spotify, Apple, YouTube, IG, everything, anywhere you get podcasts, we're going to be on there. We've been doing the podcast for over a year now. We've talked to so many great people in our city, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, artists, musicians. And today we have a very special guest today, founder of City League, but also the co-founder of Approach Dating, which is a dating app that started right here in St. Louis. City League is a foundation that started right here in St. Louis. So we have Allison Cousins on the podcast today. Thank you for making the trip.
Thanks for having me, man. I feel all the names that I've seen come through here. I feel really honored that you asked me to be a part of it.
Yeah, we're getting the good ones.
Yeah.
Doing the things. So
Absolutely. So typically, we want to start it out. I'm going to have Marissa read a little bit about City League, and then we can kind of go into your background and then like kind of lead up to where you're at now. So
starting with City League, we are a St. Louis-based, locally operated 501c3 nonprofit on a mission to develop the next generation of youth through engagement in sports and extracurriculars. Guided by our core values of equity, health, connection, and movement, we put in the work to create sustainable sports leagues for all the schools, students, and families we serve.
She's so much better than reading. That's why I always like, and Marissa's going to read you something because like Mike reading is just kind of difficult for me. So we'll come back to that. We just kind of want to let our listeners know, let that brew a little bit, and then we can talk about it.
Let it start with like what we're going to be getting into, but we always start with the background of our guest. And so whether that be, I mean, some people, I feel like in a long time, people haven't shared like family background. And so if you want to go into that, like your family, if you want, upbringing, school, where you grew up, and then we'll kind of get into, we'll start with your first-hand career that we know about, and then we'll get into City League.
Sounds great. Thank you. So a little bit about me and my background. I actually grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, so I'm a transplant to St. Louis. I've been here since 2015, so I consider myself a local, and I'm not sure if I'm a native yet, but
almost 10 years.
I know.
I mean, wow.
Almost a decade, which is crazy. My upbringing. So my dad was an engineer. He still is. Retired. My parents just moved to St. Louis, which is so awesome to have that community. I have 2 kids, and having grandparents nearby and really involved is awesome. He's an engineer. My mom was a nurse. We grew up in Huntsville. I ended up going to college in my undergrad in the same town as where I grew up. And so I played volleyball, and really my upbringing was focused around sports, which is not a big surprise considering the mission that I'm working on now. But I always knew I was going to be a teacher and a coach, was mentored by so many people growing up. And that was just what my career path was from probably like 5 or 6 years old. I was a sports kid. Yeah. I have a sister who's out in Seattle, and we are polar opposite. Like, she's the kid who was reading in the dugout during the softball game. Yeah. And my dad would be like, Amelia, get off your book. And yeah. That's so cute. But we're really close. We see her a couple times a year, and we always go on really great adventures together. So I had a really normal childhood, I feel like. I feel really fortunate to have been grown up and raised in a really affluent and well-organized town. Huntsville is like really robust and is growing. Yeah. But a lot of the things that I had growing up, I'm seeing that kids in the St. Louis city didn't have those same opportunities, which is again why.
What led you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Amazing. So then how early did you know, because I'm a teacher, so I have to ask this question. Did you know that you wanted to be a teacher?
Really early.
Yeah.
I was like trying to get babysitting jobs at like 8, 9, 10. And that was it. That was the career. Yeah.
About it.
Yeah.
There is.
What about you?
I think, oh my gosh, I used to play school, right? Like I guess every little girl did, but like I had the whole setup in like the basement. My best friend and I would play. Like you're like, I'm a 3rd grade teacher, and like lesson planned everything. So I think it was always like in me. And then I was like, okay, I think I want to teach newspaper because I was in newspaper. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll do business or maybe I'll teach business. And then it just came to be English, which I was always
But you did go to
stellar at.
college for business originally.
I started off,
Yeah.
my first 2 years I was pursuing marketing, which is just interesting because that's what Luke does now. And so I'm like, just to switch. But I love what I do. Like I love English. That was my best subject. I loved reading. It's just, I love it. So
It's a funny
probably
story.
early.
My background is also in English.
Is it?
Secondary English was my career path, and I taught 1 year of high school English, and I was like, ooh, maybe not for me.
Okay. I was going to ask what your content was.
Mhm,
So did you
Yeah.
work as a teacher in Alabama after college, or did you move to St. Louis?
So I transitioned to Portland, Oregon, actually.
Really?
So I kind of been everywhere in the country.
Wow.
And lived there for four or 5 years. And I actually taught at a private school, very small niche school, but I taught all subjects. So we had like 16 kids in my class. I taught math, language arts, IT, and PE. And that was kind of where I found my love for PE.
Wow. And that was a high school?
It was a pre-K through 8th grade. So I
Okay.
taught actually like 5th through 8th grade. It was really small.
Wow.
And I
So
had
there were 16 kids from 5th to 8th year. Oh, wow.
Well, I take that back.
Oh.
I think my group was 7th and 8th grade, but
Okay.
I also had a
Still.
partner teacher, which it was the dream teaching environment.
It was easy. You're like, this is nice.
Yeah, we split groups up by ability based on content. And
Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine. I mean, wow. That's nice. That would be nice.
Yes.
Cool.
So you're in Portland, Oregon for 4 or 5 years, and then you took a job in St. Louis.
My ex-husband did. So
Okay.
we came here to be for his position and then also to be a little bit closer to my family, who at the time was still in Alabama.
Yeah.
We had a 1-year-old at the time, and so needed
Okay.
support.
Mhm.
Wanted to be closer to family. I feel like a lot of St. Louis families do that. Like people go away and come back because that's where their roots are. And
So true.
having grandparents around when you have young kids is
A must.
so important.
That's incredible that off air you were talking about how your family moved
Yeah.
back here. So if they're
Yeah.
listening, shout out to the fam.
My mom and dad are the
They will be listening then
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh,
That's so
absolutely.
sweet.
Love
Oh
you,
my
Mom.
gosh.
Uh,
So then you taught here in St. Louis, and what?
Yeah. So I actually took a couple years off when I had both my kids. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old,
oh,
and transitioned back into teaching when I went through a divorce, and landed at a high school charter school in the city, St. Louis College Prep, which it was actually quite a unique situation. My first day of employment was the day that the executive director resigned because of allegations of financial fraud. And so the rest of the year was just quite tumultuous, kind of uncertain around what the future of the school would be, where the students would go. There were periods of time where we weren't sure if the school would be open the next week, the next day.
Jobs for you guys?
I mean, there were decisions that had to be made, like, do we fix the air conditioner in May when it's 90 degrees outside, or do we fix the elevator so that we can be ADA compliant and stay open? And so the ADA compliant choice worked, but we were teaching. I mean, we all had our thermostats, and it was like 98 degrees just finishing the year out. It was a crazy year, but through that transition, that school almost merged with the school that I landed at, Lafayette Prep Academy, which is a middle school. And they were going to merge. The merge fell through. But I landed really gracefully on my feet at Lafayette Prep Academy, which is really where the root of City League started.
Yeah.
And I taught PE for middle school there, and it was the best school in St. Louis, in my opinion. And it was just a fantastic experience. And we can get into my transition out of teaching, but
Definitely.
it's a great school. My kids go to school there now too.
Nice. Oh, so you really love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And something just clicked for you there. And like your baby was born essentially, like your other, So let's talk a little bit about
So yeah, I want to get into you as an entrepreneur, because like teachers are, I feel like, so well prepared to be entrepreneurs because of all the skills that you guys have. And Marissa has these skills as well of like, my favorite one is organizational skills, which I don't have any like spreadsheets. I'm like,
Type A.
she sent me something. I'm like, for STL bucket list. I'm like, wait, you made this spreadsheet for us? I'm like, I just had that in my head. I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is like you're like my AI robot
We're
or something.
not all like that. Like,
No, but
there's like
it's-
type A, type B.
But you get leadership
teachers,
skills. You
but
get
yeah.
be able to talk in front of groups, be able to come on podcasts and speak, and not like, even though they're kids, like you still have to like control employees if you say so.
Management, yeah.
So you started City League, and it was not a nonprofit. It was just basically a league that you created because there wasn't sports. So let's like, you were still working as a teacher, and you're like, let me just do this league after school. Like, you know, you signed up for that, and
Yeah, I mean, at the root of it, so there's a lot of history and complexity here, and I'll just try to stay kind of surface level. But, years ago, SLPS lost their accreditation, which kind of started this charter school movement in St. Louis, which is a very polarizing topic in the education landscape.
What is charter school exactly?
Yeah.
I know, but just for readers' sake too.
You are not alone. I mean, there are so many people that don't actually really fully understand. There's a lot of misconceptions. Charter schools are publicly funded schools, but they don't operate under an umbrella of an organizational infrastructure. So, SLPS has a district level employees that manage a lot of the things that like a corporation might manage, whereas each charter school is really running autonomously. And it really, in my opinion, puts them at a disadvantage because they're investing so much of their resources into the survival of the school rather than the growth of it. And that's not to say that a lot of the schools aren't still growing, but because you have to put so much of your resource into just operations, it really does create a just lack of ability to do some of the things. And so most charter schools started as like one grade level. And so they would be kindergarten, and then the next year they'd be K1, K1, 2. And so my first year at Lafayette Prep Academy was its first full year as a K through 8. So it had a full built out middle school. And I went to Susan Marino, who's the founder and executive director, and said, hey, what are we going to do for athletics? Because these kids need to play sports. And, if you go anywhere 10 miles west of the city, there are fully robust, built out, elaborate programs and opportunities for kids to play because that's part of the holistic development of a kid. And, she was like, well, what do you want to do? She's like,
I'm all ears.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we looked at options. There's a number of like leagues that are, MICDS has an instructional league, there's Clayton Rec leagues, there's YMCA, but ultimately there was a reason and barriers that would prevent kind of a robust infrastructure to support not only LPA, but there was a lot of charter schools that were in the same phase of growth that were in the same boat. And so really the best solution was to create it, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, and support the growth and development of athletics across the board, kind of as a unifying organizational structure. So
that's amazing, because I'm just sitting here thinking, and I don't mean to disrupt your thought, but like I'm starting a program and I'm like, okay, I have to get this off the ground in my school. So to think of like, I'm going to expand this into the area, I mean, that's amazing. Good for you. Seriously. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that yet. But
you can. You can. Based on that spreadsheet comment.
That's all you need. That's all you need is a couple spreadsheets.
Just some spreadsheets.
It's really where it starts. All just putting it in paper. So it really, that was step one. And then the pandemic happened. And so that was challenging. We had a couple modified programs. I mean, I was figuring out, how do we coordinate referees? I was like, I don't even know how to do that. Where are we going to play our games? Who do we get equipment from? There were so many questions. I had absolutely no idea. And there were so many people that gave me those answers and supported me. And that's one of the wonderful things about St. Louis is that St. Louis supports St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so, the first year was a little tough. And then the second year was last school year. And just like you said, I realized very quickly that it was too much to do while I was teaching full time. I was wearing a lot of hats, teaching full time.
And let's be honest, like plan time, it just goes like that. And so it's like, even when you are completely dedicating your time, I don't know how much time did you get for your plan?
So I had a little bit of athletic period planning time built in, which again, one of the reasons why I felt like LPA did a really good job supporting their staff and their teachers, but it's never enough, ever, you know?
I mean, you're always taking home something. Like, I do all the time. So yeah, it's just impossible.
So you, at that moment, you figured out, okay, this is too much. And in that same time, you're building this app and business as well. So City League was before Approach, or Approach? So City League was like right before that.
first.
Approach is first. Yeah.
Approach was 1st. So you started Approach before the pandemic as well. And then City League, you just thought was just going to be a league. Like did you have like a long-term vision? I mean, you had the vision for it, but you didn't know that like, you were like, I'm just going to teach. And then like somebody else is going to do this. Like,
so I, in my head, kind of had a transition in my plan and, communicated and worked with the school. But we realized really quickly that this has the potential to unite St. Louis in a way that is not currently being done. School sports, the value of school sports and a well-organized infrastructure is just so important. But not only that, now we're able to measure the academic components on how kids are being motivated to turn in their assignments on a weekly basis and how they're developing their relationships with their peers. And so to answer your question, I knew really, really early on that it was going to be a transition from teaching to build this. And it actually happened a lot faster and sooner than I anticipated, both based on my capacity, my personal life, and then kind of this potential of where Approach is going. So Approach actually started in the pandemic. It was in 2020, was when the idea kind of came to fruition, and then we launched in 2021. But like kind of the colliding of those two in their growth stages really made me make that decision earlier than I expected to make out of teaching, which has allowed both of them to grow in a way that they wouldn't have if I hadn't.
Was it scary to leave the classroom and be like, okay, I am my own boss. I have to get this off the ground and make it work?
Yes. Mostly I was sad about leaving the kids.
Yeah.
My 4th graders were 8th graders. And so I actually committed to staying on and being the volleyball coach. And so I would still have like that connection with my students. It was the right decision. So it wasn't a scary decision. I knew with all my heart that this is where I need to be spending my time. And I am super grateful to be in a position, when I started Approach, when I started City League back in 2019, 2021, I did not have a partner. And so now that I have a partner and kind of more stability there, and somebody who stands behind me and supports me, and, he would be the first person to say, you need to be doing this. So in that regard, it wasn't scary at all. It was exciting.
Yeah. Sometimes like I always say like the biggest risk is not taking the risk. And it wasn't necessarily a risk. Like you were thinking of it of like, no, I'm not risking this salary, but I'm risking like abandoning my kids that I like made a commitment to. So it was nice that you were able to like finish that out with those 8th graders. So City League, Marissa read your, would you say mission statement? Or so she read your mission statement. So like give us like, the holistic view of that, and like tell the listeners like what you guys do, what problems you're solving, and like kind of where you've progressed, because you guys are growing to different avenues. So if you just want to kind of go into that. And
that is a loaded question.
I always ask loaded questions. I always am like, do this, but then also do this. So let's just start with putting your mission statement into your own words and kind of just like simplifying that for people that are listening.
You said you saw the missed opportunity for the kids. And so going into...
And then I'll ask you the other three.
I can talk all day, especially about something I'm as passionate about. But at the core of it, our mission is to develop kids through the vehicle of sports and eventually other team-focused extracurriculars. So City League, we have the benefit we've been a nonprofit since July of 2020. So we are a baby and in the infancy stages of our organization. And I'm the only full-time employee at the moment, really part-time volunteer, part-time employee, But we have the benefit because we operated under the umbrella of LPA. So we have a little bit of the impact that we measured over the course of the last 2 years. And we already have the buy-in and the partnerships with the school. So, the transition into the nonprofit space, while difficult and, a lot of learning and growth, has been pretty seamless because we were already established as a league and had already been running our programs for 1.5 years or 2 years. So like I said, at the heart of it, we want to develop kids and we want sports to be a vehicle which they can do that. There's so many intangible life skills that you can develop, teamwork, cooperation, like problem solving, conflict resolution that you both probably have experienced and see every day in your classroom, but giving them the opportunity to do that. And then in the relationship of doing it through school. So what we're trying to measure and account for is the increased academic motivation, the peer relationships at schools, self-esteem and confidence, and the behavior and leadership opportunities. So without extracurriculars and opportunities to almost shine and kind of give the kids the opportunity to excel, then you're not able to measure that effectively, other than quantitative test scores and those kind of things. So second part of your question.
Yeah, and I want to add to that a little bit, because like you do take that for granted, and like we grew up in St. Louis, but like in the county, like we never even would think twice about like, what sport do you want to play? I'm like, well, I like baseball. I'm going to play baseball in the fall. Or, I'm going to play fall ball, but then I'm also going to wrestle in the winter. And then, in the summer, I'm going to run track. But like, we have all these opportunities, and you have all these coaches that are like, hey, you got to sign up for something. You got to do this. And like, a lot of the friends that I still talk to today were from sports. So it's like all these things that beyond just like having something to do after school, it's like that teamwork thing is real, like being able to work with people and like win with your brothers or sisters or however you want to say it. But like people all come together. Like there's a reason why hundreds of millions of people sit down and watch the Super Bowl together, or they watch the Olympics together and stuff like that. So the second part of the question, before I keep going off on a tangent, is so the growth of it. I just want to like kind of learn, because like you probably started really small, like with a couple sports, and like just kind of tell us a little bit about the growth, and then obviously going through the pandemic of like ways you've had to pivot, but now you're probably like, this is going to be your year. Like this is your year already. So
yes. So we are really being intentional about growth. As you said, like the pandemic year was a really small year, lots of pivots, lots of like COVID compliance, and it was just really challenging. But ultimately we got kids outside running and playing soccer, which was important. So right now we offer 4 sports: boys and girls, volleyball, cross country, soccer, and basketball. And we're in what we are considering phase 1 of our organizational vision. And that is really building the foundation. So with any new nonprofit, you need to build a foundation of support through corporate sponsors, through foundations. I'm as a transplant, I think I'm late to the party in that I'm, just making connections around the city with organizations that can support a cause. And you said at the very beginning of the podcast that St. Louis is an arts town. It's also
a sports town.
Yeah,
but we like to remind people that it's an arts town, but also, it is definitely, as we've been noticing lately with these games and with these sports, it's been crazy. It's been electric.
Huge. Yeah.
So I think there's just a tremendous amount of potential there, but we're focused on middle school because a lot of high schools have robust programming. They have the capacity to have a full-time athletic director, and they can pay their coaches. And, these middle schools that are already kind of operating autonomously on their own islands don't have that same ability and infrastructure to support that. And so what we're trying to do is take a lot of that responsibility of what a traditional athletic director would do, is we coordinate their schedules, we coordinate the officials, we coordinate the locations, and put it all together for them and say, here, like, you get your kids and show up, because we want them to come and have an opportunity to play. So we're laying the foundation with phase 1. It's a 2-year period where we're really doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. And then phase 2 is we're focused on growth. So phase 2, we're going to add track and field as a program, and then we're going to add additional schools. So right now we partner with 10 charter schools in the city. Next year we're adding 3 more. And then beyond, in phase 2, we are looking to add additional ones. Right now, all of our participating schools are charter schools, but we named ourselves City League because we want to be able to include any middle school that has those same barriers that they're facing for providing athletic opportunities. So that's phase 2. So that's growing, kind of creating stability and structure with the new partner schools, and adding a new program. Always is a lot of moving pieces. And then phase 3 is where it gets really exciting. And that is in response to kind of solving the biggest problem of all, which is the facility. Most of our charter schools, most of the schools in the city at the middle school level don't have adequate athletics facilities. Kids, even the ones that do, kids are only in the gym 1 day a week for maybe an hour. And if you're trying to develop a kid holistically, 1 hour on the court is not it. And so what we want to do is eventually develop a facility that brings kids from all schools together, so that we're going to then kind of dismantle some of the territorialism, dismantle some of the like, I'm from this school, where like, we're going to pull all the point guards over here and do a drill, and we're going to pull all the posts.
Community.
And now you know each other, like you are like a teammate with each other, even though you represent different schools. So creating opportunities for cohesiveness amongst all the schools in the city, because even though charter schools operate autonomously, most of the networking opportunities happen within the leadership and not within the kids and the community and the families. And so we want to be that opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 more things to add to the facility, and then you can ask me the next question. It's a very packed vision.
No, I love it.
The other part is including the community ecosystem. So in the facility, we'd like to be able to have concessions, like Steve's Hot Dogs and things that City Park are doing, and there's so many different community organizations. Four Hands is supporting us already, but would have the ability to reach the communities that we serve and also just be a part of it. And so incorporating the small business ecosystem. And then lastly,
love it.
And this kind of brings the concept full circle, is offering adult leagues through City League, which then people who are participating in adult leagues as an adult, maybe this could be your hobby.
I want to. I keep thinking it would be so fun if we joined a team league.
You guys would be great together. I could just see it happen. But those people are the people that have been personally transformed through sports, and then they become supporters, donors, coaches, mentors, volunteers. And so we're kind of like creating an ecosystem of people who have all been transformed in some way through sports. And it's a cohesive.
It's an
Great
ecosystem. It's an ecosystem. And hopefully,
I'm excited.
That's awesome. And that will happen, and I think that it's important to build it. Like, you have to build this space for people, because like you probably go to some of these schools and you're like, how can we hold a volleyball tournament here, or even just a one match? Like, the parents can't even sit anywhere. It's like, there's no concession. Like, we need water. We need all these things. I forgot what my third question was. So if you just want to.
Oh, okay.
I was just
back to you.
I was so impacted by the messaging that I almost forgot. That's what happens when I ask those loaded questions.
Oh gosh, let me think. Okay, we can talk about, because we're hitting like, you just have so much great. This is why you're here. Like, this is what we enjoy from these episodes.
Absolutely.
So how has your team grown, and like, what do you see for the future of the team necessarily? Because I was looking at kind of like your board a little, and we talked a smidge about that, but where do we see like the growth for your team?
Yes. I'm really excited to grow our team, because right now it's really small. Right now I'm really the full heartbeat behind the organization, which the reason that I wanted to create this organization is so that it will exist beyond one person. And so if I said I'm done right now, it would be done. But I want to create a long-term organization that is going to really impact thousands and thousands of kids that come up in middle school through St. Louis. So that makes me really excited to grow our team. Right now I have Susan Marino, who is actually the founder of LPA and my first supporter.
We met her.
Yes,
at your
at our
event.
launch party.
Yes, she's sitting right there with her daughter.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So she's doing a lot of the operational components for the organization right now. And so eventually we'll add somebody to do programming, to do development. There's I have the whole org chart if you'd like to see the teacher in me.
We'll post it. We'll post it for you guys if you're interested.
But in addition to that, the growth of the board is really important. We started as a really small board, really just kind of to check the fiduciary boxes, but want to grow our board strategically and with community members who not only represent the kids and families that we serve, but also have a heart for our mission. And that's, most important.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get involved in other ways, like, how can they do so? What are some of the other opportunities to support City League?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So we are getting ready to kick off a giving club. So that would support financially The cost to City League is $250 a kid, and we're trying to support 1,200 kids over the course of this phase 1 2-year period. So there's a couple ways to do that. You can make a one-time donation, or you can spread it out and do a monthly donation. So that's really the first way. The second way is we do have a lot of volunteer opportunities. During our basketball tournament, Four Hands actually sponsored it and had a couple of their employees come and run the score tables for us. So it was like an unbiased, really neutral group, but they were just the coolest guys.
They weren't tipsy, were they? No, I'm just kidding.
No drinking. It's school event. They were throwing back citywides.
Yeah.
They did have the branding, which is really important. We are so grateful for their support as well, which they know they support you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So there's a number of volunteer opportunities, and really, as a new nonprofit, the most impactful thing right now is spreading the word, which I'm super grateful for the opportunity to do that today, because unless you are in and living and breathing within the ecosystem of the families that we are working with and the schools that we're working with, how else would you find out about us? So sharing our mission, sharing what we're doing and how we plan to impact the city of St. Louis, that's
So when the City League, like when you open up, like let's say soccer is, you're opening up tryouts, or not tryouts, but you're just opening up, like the schools will then organize like the teams, and then the teams will come to you, and you be like, okay, we have 8 teams, let's make the schedule. And then you guys find the locations. Like that's what you're doing in phase 1 right now, is like you're using all your resources to be like, let's make sure we make this happen. And then as you grow, then you're like, okay, now we have relationships with these local organizations. And do you try to do everything in St. Louis City when you play and stuff, just because of ease of travel and stuff like that?
Yeah. We're looking to eliminate all the barriers, right? So transportation is a problem. Facilities are a problem. There's a lot of things that just create indiscrepancies and prevent schools from creating programs or participating. But we have an athletic director who is probably in all of our other schools, either an administrator or a teacher. And so they're wearing multiple hats. But my goal is to minimize the amount of athletic director responsibilities at large for them, where they're just focusing on their own school. So we do. I ask every school at the beginning of every season, are you going to have a boys team? Are you going to have a girls team? It just depends on interest.
Right.
So a lot of these schools are pretty small. So
you got to run the numbers.
Like City Garden and Lafayette Prep and Momentum Academy combined to make a girls team, but now they're getting to meet kids from other schools, and there's a unique just benefit when things like that happen.
Yeah, that's so cool. So how hard is it to balance both of your jobs? Because you have the nonprofit City League, but then you also have this app that is no joke. Like that takes a lot of work. So do you have like a strategy of like time blocking, or is it just like we kind of talked about it a little bit off air, but like how do you balance 2 jobs? Like you have 2 full-time things that you're pouring a lot of time, money, energy. It's very hard to build something, when you're not 100% in it,
Yes. That is so true. You have to be 100% in it every day.
Yeah. So you're 200% in it.
I am. I always say I'm like 60-60 or like 70-70. Like there is no 100%. It's like the day never really ends. And you have to kind of take.
And you're a mom too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're a superwoman. Seriously.
Stop. No, I think. I like function under like a prioritization schedule / I'm very calendar focused. I'm very forward thinking, and I just hold a lot in my brain at all times. Sometimes it feels good to write it down and get it all out.
Yeah, no, it definitely
Come
does.
back to it later.
Yeah.
It's good for that anxious feeling when you're like, I know I had something and I forgot, I didn't write it down, I don't know. And you're like looking through all your emails, making sure you didn't miss anything. It's like, it's crazy. Like we get so many emails, or I get so many emails, and I'm like, you're like, did you reply to that? And I'm like, ooh, I didn't even see it. And I'm like, I feel terrible for it. Like I feel so bad if I miss something.
Sometimes I make a list of all the tasks that will take less than 5 minutes and knock them all out.
That's good.
And then move on to the longer tasks.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
like,
good.
at least I checked off 20 things today.
Totally.
Yeah,
Even though
like,
it was minimal.
Some of them are so simple. Some could just be like, send an email to your team and say this. And I'm just like, ooh, crossed.
Done.
No, I like that. There's a thing called like a power list. And it's like, here's like the 5 most important things that you'd want to do. And once you knock those out, you're like, you're done. You're done for the day. But obviously there's always more to do. But if you just have those 5 priorities and just kind of work from there.
Anything else?
So so you played volleyball
I did, yes.
and softball
And basketball.
and softball, or
I played 1 year of softball in high school.
so volleyball? Is volleyball your passion, or basketball? A little bit of both.
I would say so. Yes, both of them are.
Yeah.
So if you had, I don't know many volleyball players, but your favorite basketball player could come speak at like a city league event,
Uh-huh.
who would it be and kind of why?
Right now, Dawn Staley, she's a coach, but obviously
Okay.
was a player.
Yeah.
She's a phenomenal coach. I was listening to one of your previous episodes when you asked like who's your
Yeah.
bucket list person,
Yeah.
and I was like, who would my answer be?
Right.
And my first thought was Nick Saban because I'm a huge Alabama fan.
Yeah,
Like
he's incredible too.
Anybody that knows me knows like my Saturdays in the fall are like scheduled around the games.
Around Roll Tide.
Yeah. Don't say that. Go Roll Tide. Like,
Her cousin was just at Alabama. She
Yeah,
she transferred,
did.
but they were going to games down
That's
there.
awesome.
She was there as a freshman. But yeah, he's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff he does.
Well, and I think both him and Dawn, it's the mindset of building systems and the process
Mhm.
is what I really admire most about them. But Dawn is so cool. Her story is just absolutely phenomenal, and some of the adversity that she's faced.
Mhm.
One of the coolest things I just recently learned was in 1999, Carolyn Peck won a state championship, and she was the first Black woman head coach to win, or a national championship, excuse me.
Mhm.
And she gave a piece of the national championship net to Dawn Staley,
Mhm.
who kept it. And then, for a number of years, and finally when she won, she was like, I have to share this because this is what I've held on to and has inspired
Aw.
me because I saw you do it.
Mhm.
And so she cut up her net and sent it to every Black female basketball coach in the United States and said, here, hold this and let this inspire you, because if I can do it, you can do it. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You're like, that's so
breaking glass
It's one
ceilings
of those
right and left.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd love to have.
Oh man,
Yeah.
yes.
That's cool. Like, we try to position it differently. Like, I say, like, if it's an artist, I'm like, who would you
Mhm.
collab with? So like for
Mhm.
you, it's like if you could have a basketball player or coach. What about a player, like a current? Like, is there anybody like current, like even in men's or anything like
Yeah,
that?
this
I
is-
mean, I feel like LeBron James would be pretty cool to come out
Here's
there
the
and
thing.
talk.
You would say that.
So
He did some stuff in East St. Louis though with the Flyers. I think he did something out there. I saw recently, like with his production company.
So
Like,
he also has a school. He's
Yeah.
he's so philanthropic and has just a really tremendous impact in the community.
Mhm.
This is funny because I interviewed all of the athletes in the basketball program, learning about them, learning about the impact, kind of learning about who inspires them.
Mhm.
And 9 out of 10 said Jason Tatum. And I was like,
Of course.
you know what? I think that's actually my answer too.
Of course.
He came through St. Louis and
Mhm.
is also giving back in so many ways to our
Yeah.
community. And, I just have so much respect for people that come back
Yeah.
and
This
support.
is my
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
That's a good point because, and he's still so young. I think he's younger than us. He's like 25 or something
is
like
younger,
that.
Really,
But
yeah.
he's going to eventually be on that LeBron level. I mean, with the money they make now, like he'll have
MVP.
that. Yeah, if he can win an MVP, but also like he has a foundation as well. They do the golf tournament, but that is something that like you will actually make that happen. Like you will have him come in. But LeBron's a little bit like he's like out there, like he's like the Oprah where it's like you have these not low hanging fruit, but it's like somebody that actually lives here and it's from here. But that's really cool. We'll have to tag him on here, or his dad. His dad follows us. I think his dad runs the foundation with him and stuff like that. So that would be really cool. I'm just a LeBron stan. I love LeBron so much.
Yes, you do.
Because like I was born in
Yes, you did.
1995,
Oh, yeah,
so I
that
was
was-
8 years old when LeBron entered the league, and like I've been watching him and Tom Brady. I've watched my entire life.
Yep.
So like when Tom Brady retired, I'm like, he's been playing as long
What
as
do
I've
I
been
do
alive.
now?
Yeah, and it's not like I love him, but I just love like consistent greatness
Yeah,
over and over and over every single year. It's crazy. But yeah, we could talk about sports the whole time. So
It's so funny because like I don't watch a lot of like I'll sit next to him when he's watching sports. My dad, big sports at my family. I just never was like a big sports person, but I always
she's the
say,
book one. She's your sister.
I'm the book one.
She's the book in the
Seriously.
dugout girl.
Yeah. I'm like, I would bring my books to my sister's soccer games and just be like reading my Junie B. Jones back in the day, But it's just interesting how that's like, I don't understand always what's going on, but I always say like sports films, they're the best. Like those stories and like even talking to you and what you're doing, it's just there's something inspiring.
Even the shows we watch.
And uplifting. Yeah, the show, like anything
All American,
sports
Friday
related.
Night Lights.
I was gonna say like One Tree Hill. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Don't even get
We
us
just-
started.
yeah.
Love it. We're obsessed. I've seen it way too many times over and over. It's so good. But like there's something. It just is uplifting and inspiring and feels just damn good. And I just love what you're doing.
well, thank you. And there's so many stories like that will never get heard that are coming out of our schools. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just
Definitely.
I wish.
And eventually you're going to have that impact to where some of these kids are actually going to go on and like they probably like you can't always take all the credit, but like there's going to be something that ties back to City League where it's like, look at all these kids that came out of the City League basketball or soccer
But
or
really,
cross-country
and
or
I
track
think
or
about
whatever.
that because with the age group you're working with, that is such a crucial time in their development, those middle school years, which is why I don't teach middle school. 'Cause I'm like, I need kids who are a little bit more established in who they are at the high school
But are
level.
they?
Which they are. They have like more sense of who they are. But and like I'm like, okay, you guys are 2-4 years out from being adults in the real world. And so like for me, I'm like everything I'm doing, like the toughness that I'm laying on you, it's because you have no idea what it's going to be out there. And I'm trying to prepare you. And so I'll have kids like last year, whenever I had freshmen who now are sophomores, like, thank you. Or like, I understand like what you're doing. They might not all of them, but the few that do, I'm like, you'll get it. And even the ones who haven't yet, they will see it. And so like what I see with what you're doing, like, especially, you know, just our community and just you're bringing kids up in this environment that's really going to shape
So
them.
Marissa
going
created a
into
program
adulthood.
called the Sister Project at Parkway, and it's
Yes.
basically going to be bigs and littles. So like seniors will be with sophomores and juniors will be with freshmen.
Awesome.
So it's a girl group.
It's a mentorship.
mean girl group. No, I'm just kidding.
No, not a mean girl group. That's the thing is like we see, and not even like that this is prominent at my school, but just I think fighting, right? Like it's like why? It's because we don't have the communication to express what we're feeling appropriately with people. And so there's just a variety of factors that lead to that. And I'm like, we got to nip that in the butt. Like we need to learn how to communicate. We need to set goals. We need to see like actions have consequences and like figure out who we want to be as women in this world. And so we need to start setting goals. We need to do resume building. We need to go out into the community and do like service hours. Like all of that shapes you. And I think that's important. So I'm starting that next year, which I got approved for it. I got a grant that I applied for. I was like crying and it's exciting. So all of this that you're
Congrats.
saying, I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
Yeah.
okay, it could be me one day, you know?
Well, you're right. And like the Sister Project, so she hopes to have like a panel with, you know, entrepreneurs and women so that
who
these
have
girls can
done
see somebody.
things and
Yeah.
see like what they can be,
Yeah.
you know, like you might not know in high school and it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, but you have potential. And I want to be like, have like a panel at
A lot
the
of people we've had on
end.
the podcast too. You're like,
Well,
oh,
that's what I'm saying. I like you would be amazing to have on my panel, like so the girls can see, like, look at these strong women who are doing amazing things. Like I want them to see that could be you. You're smart enough. You're goal oriented enough. Like you can do it.
And you can do it if you have kids too. I think there's just so much stigma around like this work-life balance that you have to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of young mothers now that feel really handcuffed when,
That's all that
Yeah.
they can do.
yeah.
Very true.
So
Because you did everything. You had like a 1 and 2.
we were young. Yeah,
Yeah.
2 and 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But
No, but that's
Okay.
true though. Is like being able to show those examples of like that doesn't like your life doesn't end when you have kids because you took time off work and you're like, oh, is this going to be my life? Like this 2
Yeah.
years, you probably thought
done
that was
several
gonna, yeah.
career shifts and
Right.
figured out who I was, not in high school and not after high school
Right.
and not even after college. And
Yeah, and kids get a lot of pressure about that stuff, and like even us, like I feel that like as an entrepreneur, is like you feel like you're not doing enough, but then like other people look at you and you're like you're doing so much, but
Yeah.
you're like, what am I like doing? Like I feel like I'm, you know, for lack of a better word, just like effing up out here because like you're just like messing around because I'm like, oh, like I wasted time and like you're so hard on yourself, but like everybody else is like, oh, we're proud of you, you're doing good, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I am doing good.
We're
So.
always our biggest critics, right?
So I have one more question for you before you wrap it up. I should have texted this to you, but bucket list means a lot for everybody. And basically the STL bucket list is not like, it's our way of sharing our favorite spots in St. Louis. So if you, from not being here, this is going to be an interesting one, but like if, let's say your sister comes in town, somebody comes in town, like where are the spots that you guys are going that you would say, hey, this is on my STL bucket list? Could be restaurants, could be parks.
Or you get a new
museums.
partner and sponsor for City League. And
Yeah,
you're
she's
like,
going to be like, hold on, let me pull up my
great.
partners on my app. I would go to this brewery, that
Where do you
brewery. I'd go get
go?
coffee there.
Yeah.
She's like, let me plug everybody real quick.
Well, because I'm type A, I knew you were going to ask this question.
Yeah.
So I already have my list and I
She
pulled up my app.
already
Yeah. No.
No, I am I actually thought about this in the lens of my sister coming in town because we spend really quality time together. And so I live near Tower Grove Park and I absolutely am a park person. We have the best parks in St. Louis in the country, Tower Grove and Forest Park. So those are definitely my, like, in the summer, you can find me there running, hanging out, swinging in a hammock. But I am a very, like, small business focused. I love to support small businesses. So I go visit Road Crew Coffee a lot, which is like right down the street from me. They like, I walk in and they're like, "Oh, you want your chai tea today?" And I'm like,
Love that.
You're
"Yeah,
like, yes.
yeah." And City Park Grill, which is also on Morgan Ford, right by my house. So I have to say this because it's true, not because they're a sponsor of City League, but Four Hands. I'm a big beer person, and I can't tell you, I just drink Citywide now. Really exclusively.
Yeah.
I'm like that too.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
their products. That's why it's so cool that they're sponsors because like I actually like their stuff.
like,
and the
we would-
seltzers are great.
Yes.
And the gin is great.
All
And
of
the
it's
vodka.
good, though. It is. It's
It is.
all good.
And
That's
also
what-
you feel good because you know how amazing they are
Yeah.
yes.
as an organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And you
one,
want to spend
I
your
like
money
what
there.
I'm
Mhm.
drinking, but two, like what they stand for and the collabs and the partnerships and the give back that they do. I'm like, what more could you ask for?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's fun. The brewery's fun, and I'm excited about their Chesterfield location too, which is going to be super cool.
My vision is to have them have a citywide tap house in our facility one day. So those athletic leagues can have the adult ones, not the kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect, and even the parents too, like
yeah,
having like a little
Yeah.
like
Little
brewery,
side-
like a little brew house there.
Side drink.
So what about like date night vibes? Like, do you guys have a good spot for like fine dining or when you get the chance to? I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
it's
know.
very seldom.
Few and far between. Oh man, there's a place, maybe the Benevolent King.
Yeah,
Is that over on
it's on Maplewood.
Maplewood,
yeah, right by
yeah.
Schlafly's.
Mhm. Went there for birthday dinner. That was
They
phenomenal.
have Moroccan
Mhm.
food there. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I always like Scottish Arms and Juniper, that little Midtown area.
Love it.
Juniper's
There's
so
like
good.
a bunch of good ones right
End
there.
of the woods.
End of the
Mhm.
woods mushrooms from Juniper.
Yeah.
End of the woods.
Yeah.
We're addicts.
That's
Love 'em.
yeah. I just love to hear people's because everybody has such a different one, and then there's always like a few things that everybody's like, oh, that's a staple, or that's like a
I
thing.
think we
that,
can add like Food City to the list of what St. Louis is.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And beer.
And we didn't
Yeah.
know until we started working with the Regional Arts Commission, like actually that they shared a statistic with me that more people travel to St. Louis for arts than sports because of the Fox, the Muni, and all these huge art organizations. And that might just be traveling, but like obviously we get a lot of attendance for sports. But I was like mind blown because I'm like the Cardinals get like 3.5 million in attendance a year. So there's people coming down there. The soccer team's like really crushing it, and that's really
Man.
nice to see.
So fun.
It looks like St. Louis is on this trajectory, and like organizations like you are only going to help people want to actually live here. Because that's the biggest thing is like, oh, why wouldn't I just live in Chesterfield, you know, and I could just drive to the city. But like, if we can create this infrastructure here, then other people will create it. And then not that it's a competition, but then other people will start doing it. And it's just gonna make everything better. Cause then it makes like when we were, you know, in Winsville or St. Charles, like there was like all these great travel baseball leagues, like all right here. And then it was competitive and you were like, your friend plays there, but you play here, you guys play each other. So that's what you're creating is like, not competition, but you're creating community, but then obviously competition too. Because you want the guy, like I'm sure
All
they
good
want it.
things.
And these kids are going to play with each other for years and years and years and then kind of split up and go to high school, but still have those connections. So
I have one more offbeat question. We're
fine.
going to circle
good.
back to the
Okay.
sports
Okay.
movies.
the
Okay.
sports movies.
Oh, boy.
What's your favorite sports movie?
Ooh.
I don't know. I just love them. Every time we watch one, I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're
so
good.
good.
So I would have to watch this one as an adult because I haven't looked at it in the lens of when I probably haven't seen it in 15 years. Pistol Pete it's about Pistol Pete Maravich,
Yeah.
who was a phenomenal basketball player. That was my favorite one growing up. Of course, obviously like Space Jam, but I think Glory Road, Coach Carter, those were like the best movies.
I love Coach
Yeah,
Carter.
Yeah.
those
It's
were.
one of my favorites.
Love and basketball.
Oh, remember
and
the
Basketball.
remember the Titans
Remember the
and Love
Titans.
and Basketball.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember
Sandlot's mine.
Which one did we just
I love
watch?
Sandlot. It's so good.
Which one did we just watch? It was the football one. It was the true story one.
When did we watch it?
with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, We Are Marshall.
We Are Marshall.
Yeah.
Rudy.
Incredible Rudy.
Man,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Hardball.
Hardball is great too. I love that movie. You're like,
It's
no.
all good. I'll never forget when he showed me Hardball that we were just dating and he put this sports movie
He was
on.
like, show me the money.
It's Keanu Reeves,
Yeah.
right? And then G Baby. That's all I'm gonna say because if you haven't seen Hardball, you need to go watch it.
that movie came out like
G
20
Baby.
years
I
ago.
had never seen it. I just watched it.
What's the little the tune? Like,
I love it when you call me Big
love it when you call me
Pop.
Big
It's the it's
Papa.
the Notorious B.I.G.
Yep.
song.
That's it,
Yeah,
G
but that's like the
Baby.
thing is that
I was
kids
sobbing
were in
and I
Chicago.
was so mad at you for
You should watch
showing
that
me
again
movie.
because
Wow.
when you implement baseball and like not it doesn't have to be baseball, but like this was like in the middle of the city and there was just this baseball field and all these kids came from all these neighborhoods and then they just played baseball, and it's just
Yeah.
all it takes is one person to.
That's
get them
right.
going.
yeah, all it takes is a gambling
You're the-
problem and you need to give
you're
your
Keanu
boss
Reeves.
problem.
We're gonna-
No, I don't have a gambling.
You need to blackmail somebody, be like, you need to coach this team because I have dirt on you. Guys, on a better note, though, follow Allison on socials. If you could give them the socials that obviously approach City League and then the websites, and then we'll post them out and just let people know how they can find you. So,
Let me say them
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, say
All right. So City League, our website's stlcityleague.com, and our Instagram, Facebook is STL City League. And Approach is approachdating.com, and our Instagram is Approach Dating. So we have a lot of singles events coming up, which is kind of our new focus for Approach. So I'm actually leaving here
Yay.
today to go to a 50s and 60s, not for myself, but for a 50s and 60s singles event because
Moderate.
it's hard to meet people in
fun.
person these days. So yeah.
that's so cool. Have fun.
Thank you.
Where is it?
It's at Wellspent Brewing, which is one of our partners. So
Nice.
we recently kind of turned the corner and have paying customers now, and we're kind of taking the next step. So I'm really excited about where Approach is going and going to launch into Kansas City this summer. But really grateful for the relationship with Wellspent because they have been really great supporters.
Hooking it up.
So, are you doing the Cardinals this year? Or are you going to do the live?
Our goal is to kind of pilot it.
Okay.
The technology is kind of in the works right now. We're building out the prototype.
Yeah.
And so we piloted with the Blues this past winter and going to kind of continue iterating on like a testing kind of pilot version until we get the technology there. But ultimately, we want to be able to connect people, whether at a baseball game or at a hockey game, and let them have that interaction before they spend all that time swiping, messaging, all the BS that happens on dating apps.
Yeah.
Decide if you want to actually have a first date, and then you can go on a first date. So
That's awesome.
it's in the works. It's really exciting and lots of work to do.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. That's it for the STL Bucket List show this week. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, listeners.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.